I saw where your mom was out and you congratulated her on, she almost has 10 years of sobriety, you said?
That's right. Yeah, she's
in January
of 2025. She will be 10 years clean and sober. And that's really funny because you know who she's standing next to there? That's Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House.
Oh,
And like my family's not very political. So they bring her up to this booth and like 2 chairs over is Donald Trump. Of course she knows who that is, but she shakes Mike Johnson's hand and he's like, lovely to meet you. And she says, lovely to meet you too. Who are you? Do you work in politics? It's like, Mom, that's the Speaker of the House. Okay.
She's like, well, I'll take a McDouble.
That's right.
What?
You can get a Diet Coke with extra ice.
What was? I know your mom struggled with alcoholism, right? Addiction,
mostly non-alcohol drugs. I never saw her, drink that much. But I mean, pills, opioids, heroin.
What's it been like to watch her get sober? What's that been like?
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. I know you're. What are you're recovery?
Yeah,
right?
I'm in recovery. Okay. Yeah, a lot of my family's in it too, so I think I can relate a lot to your story, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I mean, look. I mean, there was a time like I always wanted to grow up and have a family, and I remember when I was a teenager thinking to myself, "There's no way Mom's going to be around to meet. Like if I have kids, there's no way my mom's ever going to meet them." And she's now a great grandmother to the 3 grandkids, but I don't know, man. It's just. If you've known anybody in this circumstance, it sounds like you know very well what it's like. Is there's 2 feelings that you have, or at least always 2 feelings I had when Mom was going through it. Is like on the one hand, she's so smart, she's so funny, and you're just like kind of rooting for her because you just want her to get better. Then on the other hand, you're just pissed off. It's like because you don't quite understand it. I think if you're not in recovery yourself, it's hard to fully understand. And so that you'd be frustrated with her one moment and then just desperate for her to get better the next moment. And you're constantly bouncing back and forth. But man, it's amazing. It really is. I mean, she was at the wedding we were at last night, and just having a good time and being her like funny, quirky self.
She has a good sense of humor.
She's a very good sense of humor. I mean, like the bride and groom did this really cool tradition where they had like at each table a wine bottle with a number on it. And then like at the table 1, they'd open that bottle of wine their first anniversary, and table 2, the second anniversary, and so forth. And they had people write stuff in Sharpies on the wine bottle. I'd never seen that. I thought it was a pretty cool little thing. And my mom, I forget what table she was in, but like 10 years down the road, and she writes something on her bottle like, hey, I love you. Hopefully I'm still alive when you're drinking this. She's just got like, and again, she's like a kind of a morbid, quirky sense of humor. But yeah, man, it's really amazing because I never thought she'd be alive when I was 40 years old.
Yeah.
And she is, and she's got a good relationship with her family and her grandparents or her grandkids. And that's just a very cool thing.
Yeah. It's a blessing, man. That's awesome.
It is a blessing.
It was really cool to see that. Did you ever go to meetings with her? Did she go to, you have been before?
Yeah. I've been to a lot of NA meetings.
When you were growing up, did you ever go or no?
Yeah. I went when I was a kid. I went when I was a teenager. I mean, I've been to a lot actually just in the past few years because she now that she's like, she feels like she's really on the other side of it.
Yeah.
She does a lot with her local NA. I think she's the treasurer, the secretary of her local NA chapter. And do you ever go to meetings or anything?
Oh yeah, I went to one.
Okay.
I went to one. I was at one last night at 8.
Okay. I mean, there's actually a really special community around it, which I really like. And it almost kind of reminds me of church, right?
100%.
Where you say these prayers and you talk about what's going on, and there's like this sense of fellowship and community that I think is really awesome. And it's like one of these things where you see just human nature and all of its good sides and its bad sides, right? Because sometimes you have people who come in and they're getting their 24-hour medallion.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like, this is the first real period of sobriety I've had in a very long time. And then sometimes you have people who are, celebrating 15, 20, 25 years. And it's just amazing to see. But
what was it like growing up like with an alcoholic mother? Like, and no judgment against your mother. This is just to look at it, right?
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. What is that like? Like, is it hard to make a connection with your mom? Like, what are some of the side effects of that on a child?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a you get very careful about who you allow yourself to get close to, right? That's one big part of it. You're never quite sure whether you can trust the particular situation that you're in, right? So am I still going to be living in this house 3 months from now? If I give somebody my address, because this is back in the 90s, right? People still wrote letters, postcards, things like that, at least a lot more than they do today. If I give somebody my address, are they going to send me a letter? And I'm not even going to live in this place anymore because we moved around a fair amount.
Right.
But I think that, the thing that I took away from it is even as a young kid, I sort of very neatly divided the world into like 3 categories of people, right? There were the helpless people, the victims, the people who needed to be helped. There were the bad guys who were preying on the victims. And then there were the strong people who sort of stood up for everybody else and stood up to the bad guys. And that's like, that's overly simplistic. But definitely, I saw my mom growing up very much as this person who was kind of a victim and was being preyed on by bad people, right? And then the person who was sort of looking up for us and standing up for me, especially, was my grandmother. And I think that attitude of, some people are just not as strong as we wish them to be, and bad people are going to prey on them. But it's kind of up to, try to make yourself the person who can look out for people, who can protect people. And that's always what I wanted to be. That's one thing I think I took from it.
Were you able to be that for your mom, did you feel like?
Not always, certainly. I mean, when I was
it's a lot of responsibility for a kid.
I mean, when I was a teenager, man, I was definitely very, very selfish. I think I got pretty resentful just at the situation. It's like, oh, other people have more money than I do. Other people have more stability than I do. Other people, they've got nice cars. We don't have that. So there's definitely like a resentment that comes from it, I think. But I left high school and enlisted in the Marine Corps. Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I think that what that really did for me was just like gave me a cool perspective. And I probably went into the Marine Corps. I was pretty whiny, pretty resentful kid. Was pissed off at my mom. Was pissed off at all these other people because I didn't have the things that I thought I should have. And then eventually, there's me when I was much skinnier, much better looking.
Oh yeah, the Marines, dude. That was the original Ozempic.
That's right.
That's Brozempic, dude.
That is good. Marines, the original Ozempic. I'm going to steal that one. But man, I think that the way that I noticed it, I mean, not to get too personal, but like I met my wife in law school, and it was like, I dated girls in the past, but for her, it was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this girl, right? Like I'd known her for a week and I was like, I want to marry this girl.
Yeah.
And there was definitely just an element of like, it took a long time for me to get to a place where I was like, oh, I can actually trust this person. I actually rely on this person, because that's not really the experience that I had growing up. Is the people you trusted, the people you relied on, they would just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
Sometimes through no fault of their own, but sometimes they would just disappear. And so, I don't know if you'd say I have attachment issues. And that's something that definitely I think comes from growing up in a pretty tough, pretty chaotic environment. But, the other thing, the flip side of it is, and again, this is why I talk about the Marine Corps, is after 4 years in the Marine Corps, like one of the best Marines, maybe the best Marine that I served with, is this kid who grew up. He was a Puerto Rican guy from the Bronx, was a drug dealer.
Wore jewelry or not? Do you wear jewelry?
I mean, not with uniform, right?
Okay.
That's maybe he did, but by the time I met him as a Marine, he did. But he was like, he had a much harder life than I had, and there was no bullshit, there was no complaining, no whining. He was just doing his job, and he was a good dude. And you meet a lot of people like that, and you start to realize, like in some ways, not having everything handed to you is actually a blessing,
right?
And growing up in a tough circumstance and being able to understand that not everybody's always had it easy. I used to be annoyed by that, kind of complaining about it.
Same.
Now I sort of see it as like a good thing,
yeah,
right? Because I think I have a different perspective than a lot of people I spend my life around, where they were born to a rich family, they went to a private school, then everything was kind of laid out for them.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of good to not have everything laid out for you, because you have to work for it a little bit more.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow up question to that, was just like, what are the positives, like, and also so we don't get stuck in like just in like a Debbie Downer spiral kind of, because it's okay to talk about stuff, but sometimes, it's like things can get kind of like where you're just looking at the negative things, but there's usually something positive in everything.
Exactly right.
And that's what I was thinking. What were some of the positives of having a childhood like that and of being, and I guess it would be some self-reliance.
I think it's definitely some self-reliance.
Awareness probably, which is probably a curse when you're young because it feels like you have to be kind of scared of stuff, but when you get older, having awareness can be pretty helpful sometimes.
Yeah, I've got my head on a swivel, right? I'm always looking around corners. I'm always kind of worried that things that aren't exactly what they seem, but I think that's made me a little less comfortable, which is a good thing, especially in the political life that I now live these days. Yeah, it's good to have your head on a swivel.
Hey, now everybody's an alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? You're like,
yeah, everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism. Is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing. We can go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, I guess the other thing that I gain from it is, I think that I'm just I see people as people. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've picked up on, like I went to law school at Yale, and a lot of my classmates are good people. But
you're a lawyer also?
Yeah, but I sort of, as soon as I went from law school, I went into the business world. So I never really practiced law. I was mostly a business guy. But like a lot of my friends, they look at people as like, where did you go to school? What do your parents do?
Yeah.
What job do you have? What credential do you have? I've never had that, right? And so when people like talk about politics or policy, they'll be like, oh, well, this person has a PhD. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Now, they may be smart, but I don't care about.
PhD's only 3, doesn't even spell anything.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't care about the letters. But I meet somebody and, they don't have a fancy degree or they don't have a fancy job. I still just naturally care about what they think because the way that I grew up, I just sort of see people as people.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it's a perspective that I'm glad that I have. I think it's very much a product of how I grew up.
Yeah, I like people that have their own thing. I don't dislike somebody if they inherited everything.
Yeah.
But I gravitate more towards people that haven't had that experience, I think, because I don't know. There's just something a little bit more abnormal about it. I didn't like it when things were handed to people. I guess maybe the truth is I got upset when other people had stuff that was handed to them, which probably was just normal stuff to be handed to a kid.
Yeah.
Or but that made me like, oh, screw that. I'll figure this shit out. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Fuck them or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I had that exact attitude.
Yeah.
When I was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that it's just that rebellion at that age. What would you say, and because we have a lot of audience members that have struggled with addiction and these days you can't even like, who doesn't have somebody that's in their family or something that struggle with addiction? Sure. But what suggestion or like just advice or thoughts would you give to a young person who has a parent who has alcoholism as to how to navigate that? Because I even get messages a lot from people that are like, hey, my dad is struggling or this, what do I do? I don't know what to do here, Do you have any thoughts on that? And it's not like you're a specialist.
Yeah, no,
I know that.
I'm not a specialist. Here's what I try to do. Take this for what it's worth. But number one is you gotta, if you're a kid and you're in an environment where there's a lot of addiction, you got to make sure that you're taken care of, right? Like, don't get yourself in such a situation where it's not just your parent that is struggling, but it becomes you that's struggling too, right? Because you can't help them out. You can't help them out unless you're able to take care of yourself first, right? That's number one. I think number two is, as hard as it is, man, and shit, I know this very well because there were times when I had some very angry moments with my mom. Don't get resentful and try to keep your heart as open as possible, right? You got to compartmentalize a little bit, right? There's the addict version, but then there's the version that, that read you a book when you were a kid, or there's the version that took you to, your favorite movie, or you try to hold on to the memories that are completely divorced from the addiction. Because I think if you allow yourself to become totally resentful, then it doesn't just affect them, it starts to affect you too, right? Don't allow your parents' addiction to become something that destroys your life too. In other words, is you've got to kind of keep your soul intact here. I mean, just practically go to those NA meetings. I mean, I learned more about mom and her addiction going to those NA meetings, and I didn't always, it's not like it was like some eureka moment. There's, I'm not pissed off at you anymore.
Right.
But you at least understand it a little bit more, and you gain some appreciation for what's going on in their life, because that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And you also, the thing about NA meetings is just, again, it is human nature and all of its splendor, its virtue and its vice, man. It's just
some dude
real
was selling
life.
a boat. The last one I went to, some dude's selling a fucking boat at one of them.
It's exactly.
And we're like, you can't, dude. We're trying to get off of drugs, dude. And some guys started bidding on the boat. I'm like, and they had made him take it outside, because it's outside issues or whatever. But it was like, what is even happening here, dude? I was in a meeting. Some guy had a fish hook stuck in his freaking cheek, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, yeah.
Man.
He had 2 weeks clean.
Yeah. He'd either had a really bad night or a really good night. Maybe both. Jesus.
Yeah, who knows what happened. God dang, it's just like, all right, dude. Catch and release, brother. Catch and release. He probably had tried to come across the border.
We'll do that.
And I only say that because we've had a couple of Border Patrol agents on here, and so we've learned a good bit about it over the years.
No, I had a Border Patrol agent who's clearly.
Before you go, but I just that statement about trying not to be resentful against your parent, because that resentment is the seed that can lead you down some of this or activate some of the same behaviors in you. It's not, and I'm not preaching that, but it can activate a lot of resentment. It's an evil seed.
No, that's right.
And so many bad things can happen there, because that's an important message. I never thought of that or heard it before.
Like the coolest thing, right? Think about my mom. I didn't think my mom would be alive when I was 40 years old. And now I see her play Pokemon with my little 7-year-old and build a relationship with these little kids. And it's just a really, really rewarding thing. I mean,
does it feel like a gift that you were able to give your mom, almost like not you were able to give it to her, but that God gave you this series of events in your life where you get to see your mom play with this kid, and you're like, man, that almost could have been me, but it does get to be me, like in a weird way. Like,
that's exactly right. I feel like it's a gift that God gave to us, where we get to have this second chance with mom.
Yeah.
And, we get to, wouldn't necessarily relied on mom when I was 12 or 13, because she was still caught up in addiction. But now, we'll leave our kids with mom.
Wow.
And being able to rely on her is just a very cool thing. My wife, I remember when our kids were first born, our oldest was born in 2017. And at that point, mom had been clean and sober for about a year and a half, I guess. And I remember talking with my wife, and she's saying, I love your mom. I hope that she stays clean and sober, but we're never letting her babysit.
Yeah, it's a little early.
Right? A little early. But now, we trust her with all 3 of them.
Wow.
And it's an amazing thing, man.
Oh, yeah. And now with 3 kids, you'll give them to anybody to watch. You know what I'm saying? If you got 3 kids,
true.
bro.
That's true.
Anybody can watch them,
that's
dude.
right. No,
But no, I think that's really cool. I could have just imagined, you getting to see, your kids be with your mom and this, it just completing the 8 or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like that symbol or whatever, infinity symbol or whatever,
No,
I could really
exactly
see
right.
that. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It's important. That's the power of things you see through recovery and stuff too, It's like that people get to just have a different life, It's you witness it all the time in the meetings and stuff. I do anyway.
Yeah, there's something very redemptive about it, man. And
if you want to hear a miracle or something, you want to see a miracle, go to a meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You get
Seriously.
to see, and it very much is like church. It's like sometimes people are like, you don't go to church sometimes. I'm like, dude, I go to church 4 times a week at least.
Yeah.
Right?
Good for you.
Good for you. It's man. That's those meetings, it really is. It's like you get everything you could get out of you witness God's work just through other people,
Yeah.
Much less outside of possibly in your own life.
Yeah. And the testimonials you hear at meetings. The courage it takes somebody who's been clean for 2 days to walk in
and bid on a
bunch
boat,
of strangers, and bid on a
yeah,
or to sell a boat.
Yeah,
hey, I've got
no. I'm joking. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I got rid of my cocaine and now I've got a boat. You want to buy it? Oh man.